Hey everyone, I'm Zach, and welcome to this month's Town Hall, where we answer questions submitted by the community to shine light on your burning questions. Welcome everybody, and before we dive in, we wanted to let you know some reminders and a disclaimer. So first, right off the bat, the March airdrop is coming in hot, and in order to be eligible, make sure you're playing this month as well as own a collectible. And last month, many people thought that these streams are for big news and reveals about the game, which, while we will share new information from time to time, the primary goal of these streams is to communicate with you guys and answer some of the questions so all of the community feels heard. And this month we have a lot of questions, so we won't be able to answer them all. And as always, we will want to answer as many as we can with the time that we have with our very special guest this month. And with that off the bat, today we have the one and only Matt Tonks, our CTO, with us. Welcome, man. And with us today to talk about anything related to the economy, Khaled, our Director of Economy and Monetization. Welcome, fellas. What's up? And welcome everyone in Twitch chat. And welcome. And before we jump in, we got something cool to share. And I think you guys are going to be very excited to see this guy. He's the Blight Captain. He's a new combatant coming out in 0.26. So, little dude, look at him. Look at him go. He's going to be terrifying. I'm just looking at him and I feel terrified already. And with that sneak peek out of the way, let's jump right into the first Town Hall's questions. All right, let's get right into it. The first question that we have, I believe, is from Matt. How soon until controller support?
Hi, everyone. So there is some amount of controller support currently. Like if you plug a game controller into your PC, it will work. You can run around and bind keys to it. Beyond that, we will probably add better support to it sometime in the future, but it's not on the immediate roadmap. I mean, at its heart, Big Time is a PC game. The UI is designed for a mouse interface. So really to do that justice, if you've ever played, say, Diablo on console or something like that, it's almost an entirely new game to make it work on a controller separately from the UI. So we don't want to kind of do that halfway. We want when we add real controller support, we want to make it fully support all the features in the game, and that's just quite a tall order for a game like Big Time, and it's not going to happen in the immediate future, but it is something that's on the roadmap.
Cool. There, you heard it, man. You heard it from the source. All right, another Matt question. Are the devs happy with the game they've built so far?
This is an interesting question. I mean, certainly, whenever anybody's creating anything, if you're asking if we think we're done with it, certainly not. There's always stuff that could be better. There's always polish we want to do. Are we happy with it in general? I would say definitely yes. Yeah, the team's very excited about the game, and we have a blast adding cool new features to it every day. But that doesn't mean that we're like happy with it as in cool, it's finished, we're gonna walk away. We have massive plans. We always have way more plans than we have time to execute on, and that's gonna be the case for the foreseeable future. Really, we would love to do amazing things with Big Time. We have grand visions for it. So the game will definitely keep evolving and getting better. Sometimes even dramatically changing as time goes on. It's all of our goal and what we do every day is to iterate on the game as fast as possible and make sure that we're moving the needle in the right direction and making the thing as fun as it possibly can be with the resources that we have.
Yeah, it's always improving. Will there ever be a feature where we can customize our NFTs, or are all of the NFT skins fixed? This is a two-parter. Also, will character customization be introduced in the future so that everyone doesn't look like they have the same parents?
Character customization is coming. That's actually something we've already been working on. Starting with like a female character model and a little bit of character customization that layers on top of that as well. Modifying the NFTs themselves is probably not going to be anytime soon. Those are really tricky. When you're selling something to someone, or when it's available for real money, people tend to get really upset when things change after the fact, or if you can like modify the item from what it was originally intended. So that's not to say we won't ever do any kind of NFT customization, but the thing that we're looking at first is the character customization itself, and that is something that's coming soon.
I hear that. It says, speaking more to the future, do you plan to create more towns, create a bit more of an RPG experience, give us more lore through quests, and are there going to be quest chains?
Yes, yes, and yes. So the .2.5 release was kind of the first step into this, where you saw a little bit more of a quest chain guiding you through the first time user experience, basically the first 10 levels of the game. We're definitely going to be extending that further, so that you have a little bit of lore, a little bit of storyline breadcrumbs, if you will. We're working on new towns. There's something called Epoch City. Is another sort of starting area that we've been working on that'll be showing up in a patch later on this year. And yeah, I mean, this is all sort of one of those things that we definitely want to do, and we're constantly adding more and more in this direction. One of the big steps there was getting our quest system kind of off the ground and functional. And like I said, the .2.5 release was a big milestone in that direction. We had to kind of get a lot of those systems working and add features to them in order to get the first time user experience quests to work. And so now we're extending that system even further, but utilizing all this stuff that we did there to do further, quests beyond first time user experience, add more daily bounties and things like that uses the quest system as well. And we have some other exciting kind of surprises that are tied to that quest system coming into .2.6 and then more beyond that even. So like I said, yes, yes, and yes.
Awesome. All right, next one, right off the bat, it says, I have seen within Big Time that many players want to trade in gold. Will gold auction houses exist in the future? And will it be possible to sell gold in the future for USDC or USDT?
So being able to trade items in general in game is definitely something that we're going to add. Originally, we had planned on, I don't know if you've played like World of Warcraft or say EverQuest, they had this system where you could walk up to somebody and open a trade window with them. We may do something like that. Another suggestion that was from a user in Discord I just saw the other day that I thought was awesome is making a trade table in the PPU, where if you want to trade with someone, PPU is what we call personal metaverse for short. But anyway, in your personal metaverse, you can put down a trade table if you have that item, and then somebody else can jump in there with you and trade. You can trade for gold or any other in-game item, as long as both parties kind of agree to it, then the swap happens. Trading gold for USDC or any kind of like more real world currency is probably not going to happen anytime soon. There's all sorts of regulatory issues that we have to be really careful with there. So we will be doing in-game trading, but we'll probably be keeping in-game trading separate from any kind of like real world money trading.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, our first Khaled question. Hi, when can we open boxes and be able to move the NFTs to our wallet? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So, hey everyone. So about opening boxes, obviously we need the boxes to be opened before the economy update is out, which is 0.27. And we're planning to have that probably at the later part of Q2. So the idea behind this is we want players to open the box and then directly, could use the utility NFTs directly in the game or briefly after. Now, the other part of the question, which is moving NFTs to your own wallet, this is something that is on the roadmap for OpenLoot, but it's not something that is, I would say, has the same priority as the other things, which is kickstarting the economy, having everything working. So it is on the roadmap. It's not in the near future, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you, man. We definitely have a more passionate question next. Tell us how we got from an initial projection of 10 weeks of EAL, then global shortly thereafter, to now a 1-year anniversary EAL coming up on April 19th with no set date for the economy release and global launch. We waited too long for this to happen. I think that's for Matt.
Sure. So the 10 weeks that you're talking about was really just for gold, silver, jade passes, and the times that those lasted were just about what we predicted. And really the reason that we did those phases is to give the people that were kind of the most bought into supporting us early on the most benefits. So one of the things that we've actually been looking at a lot recently is looking at, in retrospect, doing some analytics and looking at how much actually dropped in each of those phases and making sure it matches what we were trying to achieve. And I'm happy to say that all the digging that we've done in there has proven that if you had a gold pass, for example, those more NFTs dropped during that time period than any other time period, and all the sort of like biasing towards the people that supported us the most early on is still the case. As far as the global launch or I guess this is talking about global launch isn't really something that we ever put a date on. Beyond the gold, silver, jade time periods, really our priority has always been to get as many people in the game to help us test it and make the game better as possible. And then we will transition to the next phase whenever the thing is ready, right? Like, so that means the systems need to be functional, the player base needs to be happy with it, and we need to be happy with how those systems are functioning. It's always been more of a state of the game that we want to achieve rather than just an arbitrary date. I'd much rather push things back in order to release a game to a wider audience that is going to be more successful and is closer to what we think the game should be. And that's going to be true from here on out. We are trying to, we are marching towards getting the game economy released very soon. I can't tell you exactly when that is, again, because it's going to be when it's ready. We don't want to release it early before things are functional. So we are working on it right now. We're pretty excited about it, and I'm optimistic that we'll be maybe sooner than you think. Beyond that, I can't really commit to a date. Anytime we try and give any dates, people get mad at us if we slip on it. So we just have to be kind of vague, and I know that's frustrating, but that's just the way of things, right? Like I don't want to tell you a date and then it's not ready and we have to slip it, and then people have their expectations not met or whatever. So we are working as fast as we can, and as far as I know, all the sort of big promises that went along with purchasing a pass early on were exceeded, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. We're striving to do that as time goes forward with switching to an invite-only beta and then going into the next phase after that. But again, all of that is dependent on the state of the game and the state of the economy and how well things are working. If something isn't working, we're going to go back to the drawing board and fix it rather than release something that doesn't work. So, hope that
Well
answers
said.
your question.
Well said, man. Any chance of simplifying the skill system so it's a little more intuitive to figure out? If not, can you please add a skill tutorial that walks people through the skill tree and shows them where trainers are and how to use them?
Yeah, this is. There's been a few, or more than a few points of feedback coming from the community along the same vein, and it is something that we're listening to. We're trying to sort of do all of the above. We're going to make the skill trainers a little bit easier to find. We're going to add some more tutorial information to make it easier to understand what's happening. And ultimately, kind of going back to that other question, how you unlock your skills will be a little bit more of a quest line rather than go find a guy in the dungeon as it is now. So we're trying to attack that on all three prongs. But I definitely agree with you. The skill tree unlock situation as it is right now is fairly confusing. And it has a lot of promise there. We like the idea of rewarding players that are exploring the world and finding a cool thing in a dungeon. But it's just too opaque at the moment. So we're definitely working on that. And you'll probably see some the first step in that direction in the 2.6 release coming out soon. And we'll continue iterating on that in the future. Like I said, probably switching over to more of a quest unlock system. I'm not sure if that'll make 2.6 or it might be in 2.7 though.
Man, a lot of stuff to look forward to. That is very cool. Currently, all dungeons have the same enemies, but do you have any plans to switch the enemies that are more suited to each biome?
Yeah, good question. So there is a little bit of this already. Some of the dungeons only, like the ancient monitors and stuff only show up in certain dungeons. And that's true of cyber pirates and stuff like that too. But that said, it is not as sort of cut and dry as we probably want it to be. And a lot of that is a function of how many enemies we have available. I'd rather get a new dungeon out that has cool gameplay in it and reuse some enemies in there if it means that we get another dungeon out versus waiting for more enemies to come online. But the good news is we are constantly adding more enemies like the Blight Captain you just saw a sneak peek of. We've got a whole bunch of other ones concepted and planned. And so as more of those enemies come online, we can be a little bit more choosy about which enemies show up where. And that's definitely something that we'll be improving. Again, this will kind of go along with the quest, more sort of story-driven quest line stuff that we've been talking about. As if there's a quest line asking you to go defeat the cyber pirates in the Egyptian tomb, that will obviously have cyber pirates in it, and we'll kind of be sort of delineating a little bit more strictly in the future. But it's just a matter of available enemies and available dungeons at this point. But I hear you. Yeah, that's definitely something we can do improve.
Very cool. Next question. Need a proper, huge, strong boss. Will you make such real bosses instead of the middle class enemies? This is a two-parter. Will the dungeons have floors in the future? I want to dig deeper into the dungeon, like Tower Dun or underground 50-floor dungeons.
Yeah, cool. So the very first kind of step that we made was the elemental boss fight. That was kind of a multi-stage big boss battle. That's one of many that we have planned. We want to try and get not only the boss battle itself to be multi-stage, but add more bigger bosses going forward. So short answer is yes. And then the caveat there is that this is all, like anything else, is gated on how many resources and how much time we have. So there's a lot of priorities we're juggling. I don't know exactly when those other boss battles will go online, but we have them planned and some work already put towards them. So look for those new boss battles to come out in future patches.
Very cool.
Oh, and the second part of that question, I should say, is the dungeon levels, kind of like Diablo, I'm guessing. And funny that you asked. That is something that we are working on right now. It probably won't make 2.6. Maybe it will. We'll see. But that's something that we think would be really cool too. Is sort of like an infinite dungeon where you go in and you fight one level, and if you complete that, you go one level deeper. Complete that one level deeper. Of course, it gets harder the deeper you go. Maybe the rewards get better the deeper you go. But because of the procedural generation system that we have, that's something that we should be able to do without, kind of breaking the bank in terms of development budget. So that's something you can look forward to too. Yeah.
These are some good questions today. All right. What's the full potential size of the maps that the Big Time team are planning on in the future? Since more massive the map is, more content that can be added, if there's any, can we have the estimated scale on the maps in kilometers that the Big Time team are planning on?
I don't have like kilometer scale, but if you want to get an idea of probably the biggest map that we'll do anytime soon is the full breadth of the Times End map. So when you first get into Times End, you're sort of restricted to about 1/4 of it. And if you look off in the distance, there's like a forest area and some more desert area. There's a couple other continents out there. So we'll be unlocking those as time goes on. And the full size of that map is quite large. Like I said, I don't exactly know how many kilometers it is across. But for us, it's a lot more about making sure we have interesting content to fill that space rather than just having a giant space. We can unlock those sections right now and sprinkle some stuff in there, but I don't think it would be terribly interesting. So we need to build more mechanics and more gameplay that makes sense at the time. But that is something that we're going to do.
That's so exciting. Next question. Will there ever be other classes, a paladin with melee and spells, or necromancer walking dead mobs alive maybe? Will we get new content soon, like new monsters, new bosses, new missions? And will class crossing ever be a thing, gears and skills?
Okay, so taking those questions one at a time. Will there ever be new classes? Yes. 2.6 has new classes in it, for example. So new classes in 2.6 that will be releasing very soon. And then the plan even beyond that is to keep adding new classes as time goes on. Whenever we kind of kick off another season, there will be at least 2 new classes associated with that, probably more. And the details of what those classes are sort of TBD for the more longer future cases. We know what the 2 classes that we're releasing are for 2.6, but I don't think we've announced anything there yet. So I have to keep tuned or stay tuned for that. The second part of that question was, will there be new content soon? So we try really hard whenever we do a new patch that it comes with a bunch of new content. So, 2.5 had the Egyptian tomb. It had new monsters. It had it had daily quests and a whole bunch of new mission types, new objective types. And that's going to be true of 2.6 as well. Every time we release a patch, we make sure that it has some cool, interesting goodness for players to consume and not just bug fixes and stuff like that. So the when question, when will you get new content, is when the next patch is out. So we're working on 2.6 right now. I expect to see that within the next month or so. Hopefully sooner than that, but again, it's about when it's ready and not necessarily a particular date. So very soon though. Let's see, what's the last part of the question?
Class crossing.
Class crossing. Yeah, this is actually something I'm not exactly sure what you mean by class crossing, but like gears that you can use in multiple classes is something that we've talked about, like a special gear that 2 different classes could equip, or maybe all classes could equip. That could be really cool. Or maybe a special gear that lets, say, a chronomancer use some time warrior skills or something like that. So I don't know if that qualifies as class crossing, but that's definitely something that we are playing around with. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Very cool. Hey, big time. When wielding dual blades without a weapon skin, I have 2 daggers. When I put on a dagger skin for the dual blades, I only have 1 dagger. Will we eventually be able to show our dual blades with 2 dagger skins? And how were you planning on fixing this?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is this is just a bug. So yes, you will be able to display both when you have a dual wield weapon equipped. Dual wield weapons are kind of a special case that just there's a bug in the system right now. When you equip an NFT, it doesn't also apply or create another mesh in your other hand. So that should get fixed soon. It's already in our bug tracking system. So yeah, sorry about the bug. There's always some bugs, right?
And that's awesome. It's getting fixed. Okay, next question, I believe, is this for Khaled? Yes, it is. When are the new features coming to OpenLoot, our partner? And when can we see when and what price we bought something? And are there plans to bring other features into OpenLoot, such as auctions or sending offers to NFT owners?
Yeah, sure. So we got tons of features that we're planning to do with OpenLoot. There is a good chunk of features that are going to be out hopefully at Q2 and Q3. I could give you some of the features, for example, checking a specific price history on a specific issue NFT. That's planned for Q2. Another feature is checking the user transaction history, which is also for Q2. And the last one is price history, for example, on a specific item, which is also planned for Q3. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff planned, but again, like we got a lot of priorities. Our number one things is to make sure that all the features that are needed to have the economy up and running, these are our main priority, and then those would follow suit.
Awesome. I think these next couple ones are for you, man. It says the utility box opening was planned for Q1 2023. What are the reasons that this has been postponed to Q3?
Okay, so this one, actually, there is multiple reasons. One of them is that we still have some things that we need to finalize relating to the utility NFTs. The second thing is we thought that it would be better that players could open the box, and then it would be a brief period where then they could deploy the utility NFT in the game. I think that would be better instead of opening it and then they need to wait for a long period of time. And because the economy is closer now, I think it's better to keep it that way.
Very cool. Next up, when will it be possible to move a big time NFT to a private wallet?
Okay, so I think this question we just answered earlier in this call.
Yeah.
Like this is something on the roadmap. It's not an immediate or something that needs to be implemented immediately for us now, but it's on the roadmap and it's going to be implemented hopefully soon.
Very cool. So I guess this is for either. The next question is for either of you guys. When can we expect the invite beta, and how will it be decided who will join the beta? Is it going to be pass or space holders? And please do not answer this with soon.
Okay, so can I take this, Matt?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So because we're going to kickstart the economy hopefully soon, we're going to need tons and tons of cosmetic shards. So we need a lot of players that will be farming these cosmetic shards to make sure that the crafters got their ingredients to start crafting everything, all the recipes that we put in the game. So we're planning to, once we have the economy up and running and tested and everything is fine, and we think that the economy could handle a substantial amount of users to come on board, that's where we're going to start the open beta or the invite-only beta. But keep in mind, like it's what's going to happen once the economy is live. There is a lot of things that are going to change. One of the main things that we would like to change is how the drops for NFTs are happening via the gameplay. So not a lot of users, or like a lot of users coming into the game does not mean that a lot of NFTs would drop, and maybe a lot of farmers or people who are extracting value or something like that would benefit. So we shouldn't be afraid from having a lot of users come into the game, essentially.
Yeah, this is another, I mean, I guess I could say we are working to get to the point of invite-only beta in the middle part of this year. But this is definitely one of those that is firmly in the camp of when it's ready and not at a particular date. We want to have the economy features all stood up and working and have a lot, we'll probably have like the player council testing them for a while before we actually put this out to the public, because the last thing we want to do is put those features out in some kind of broken state. And we sort of, lose our chance to make that impactful. So it'll be as soon as we can be, relatively sure that it's not going to be a colossal mess when we release it. So we want to do lots of testing. We want to have things in a good situation before we go there.
Cool. Matt, we got a very vague question for you. Are there development problems with Big Time?
So the short answer is no. I mean, I think the sort of impetus of this question is there some big gloomy problem? Not at all. I mean, there's always development problems in any production that you work on, such as like there not being enough time in the day. That's my biggest problem usually. One thing that I do want to point out though is I've seen some kind of interesting expectations for say the team size of Big Time and how much we should be able to get done in a particular amount of time. So just for everyone's reference, the game team on Big Time is about 30 people. So compared to say a AAA game team that you'd see at Blizzard or Epic or whoever, that it's about maybe 5% the size of one of those teams. So we have some really talented and experienced folks, and we're able to do a lot with a little. But at some point, there's only so much that we can do. We only have so many hands, and so maybe some of the people here are ascribing problems with just the fact that it's a small team, and sometimes certain types of things take longer than you might think. But the good news is that with a small team, other types of things are a lot faster than you would see at a big company. For example, reacting to feedback and pivoting the game, we can do really rapidly without a whole lot of bureaucracy and a lot of mess. We can kind of change our minds and fix stuff really, really quickly, which I personally really enjoy. But it's like, again, back to the sort of, I think the subtext of this question is there like some horrible thing happening on the dev team? I'm happy to report that is not the case. The team's never been happier. We're all kind of pretty excited about where the game's going. And I was just talking to, we do like a gameplay playtest every day. And after the playtest today, I was chatting with some of the other leads on the team, and we were saying it really feels like a lot of the core systems are kind of functioning the way that we want now, and we can really start iterating and polishing and not having to get mired in standing stuff up for the first time. So things are looking good as far as I'm aware.
There you go. Well, there's your answer. All right, we got a bigger one here. Hey, Big Time, to make combat more fun and dynamic, you think you may implement player combat reactions? For example, if a Chrono throws an ice blast to freeze enemies, a Time Warrior can use the spinning ability to break the ice on the affected enemy, causing additional damage. Yeah,
I love the idea. I guess I would call those sort of like class interaction abilities. That's definitely something that I think would be really impactful. A lot of the game is tuned such that a party with lots of different classes in it will do better than a party with just one class. Or you can roll with a group of just Chronomasters if you want, but it's not necessarily going to be the easiest or most powerful group. So we love having those kind of class interactions, and this idea in particular sounds really cool. We've got lots of other ideas of our own along these same veins, where one class kind of sets up the stage and the other class clears the table or something like that. But sort of to the first part of the question is like tuning combat. That's actually something that in 2.6 we've been messing around with, kind of some of the fundamentals of melee combat and trying to make that a little bit more interesting, a little bit less of just a button mash fest. So look for some big changes in 2.6 and beyond that as well. So like I said, now that some of the core systems are kind of stood up, it gives us a little bit more time to go back and iterate on the fundamentals. And I think this is one of those cases where now we have a little bit more time. We can kind of dust those systems off that we stood up long ago and figure out how to make them better, or see, evaluate whether we think they're working well right now or not. And if they're not, go fix them. Man, I don't know about everyone watching, but I'm getting very excited for 0.26. This is going to be very cool. All right, next now I've hyped it up too much. No, never. There's a lot of stuff in there, though. That's very cool. I know it's still too early to talk about PvP, but ... when can we expect PvP at Big Time? End of 2023, 2024? Did part of the team start working on PvP already?
or could you shed some light on what we will see in PvP, open fights in Watertown, or specific battlefields?
So this is still early enough that I hesitate to put a date on it. PvP is something that we want to do. I would say sometime this year, probably. But again, it's going to be subject, depending on how things go with the economy. Like the first priority is getting the game economy off the ground and kind of the core systems working. But we have talked about PvP a fair amount. We have some pretty cool ideas that we want to experiment with. So we've done a little bit of work in that arena, but I wouldn't expect it, this quarter certainly. So sometime soon. Probably the first kind of foray into PvP that you'll see is we're going to put a dojo, make a dojo personal metaverse tile that you can get. That if two people step foot in that dojo, they can then actually do damage to one another. Of course, if somebody dies, they just respawn in the dojo because it's kind of a for fun thing. But that'll let players go in and spar. And the sneaky goal there for us is to give us a way to test PvP and start balancing things and finding issues that might come up. That definitely will come up as we switch from just PvE versus also supporting PvP. So that's probably the first step that you'll see going.
Man, I'm so excited. I believe you kind of sort of already answered this, but it's on the list. The team is doing great progress with the sound and visuals. Thank you. Next is combat. We really need an upgrade to combat. The community has given feedback on combat and mechanics, but what are your thoughts on how to improve the fun and dynamics of combat?
Yeah, so I think the first step is to, we have this interesting combo system that I think is something that we want to lean into a little bit more and make the combo moves and the heavy attacks and the light attacks more meaningful, but also a little bit more challenging to achieve. So that if you nail the timing and you get to the fourth attack or the fourth heavy attack, that it really has a big impact on your combat. And to go along with that too, we want to make a little bit more meaningful weapon gems that slot into those combo moves. One of the things that we've been working on is a special type of weapon gem that completely swaps out the finisher move on your melee combo. That's probably not going to be ready for 2.6 because it's a kind of a big project to bite off, but it's something that we're working on, and that would give you the ability to put in a special gem on your weapon that then does some completely new amazing attack when you get to R4. So that's we agree, and that's one of the things that we're actively iterating on right this moment, actually.
Wow, very cool. Any chance you will get more portals in the Dusky Forest? It is taking us far too long to find portals around our level. Big space, but very few portals. Thanks so much.
I think this one is just a bug that I believe has been fixed already. We'll need to go follow up on this, but from what I understand, there was some other stuff that could spawn in Dusky Forest that was dropping little breakables and things around the level, and those were kind of taking the slots of the portals, which was not intentional. So that should be fixed in 2.6, I believe.
Okay, very cool. Next one, are people using bots to farm NFTs like they do on other platforms? We know people are using speed hacks. How much is this affecting the NFT drop rate for other players?
So the good news is when we built the system that determines whether NFTs drop or not, or what the drop rate is for people, we were very cognizant of the fact that the game client could be exploited or compromised. We do our best to make sure that doesn't happen. But the NFT system is very paranoid. So the short answer is it doesn't really affect. It does in the sense that if somebody's using a speed hack, for example, they may be able to survive longer, but it's not going to give them an Uber leg up in terms of how many NFTs they get. The other bit of good news is that unlike some other games out there where a lot of the combat is actually, maybe this is too technical, but a lot of the combat is client authoritative, which makes it easier for cheats to kind of override and make you invulnerable and things like that. Big Time is very much server authoritative, so the servers are, we control them, so nobody can hack them. You can't install a hack on your PC and make the combat different. There was a bug in the melee system actually that was allowing people that have that speed attack to actually, their speed cheat, to execute melee attacks quicker than the server was wanting them to. So that's actually something that we've been concentrating and really hardening on for 2.6, because recently we started seeing a rash of more people in the game with cheats on, which is a real bummer. So we're kind of making a concerted effort there to make sure that the server is really paranoid and doesn't trust the client because of situations like this. And the other thing that we'll probably do is look at turning on some anti-cheat software in the future as well, just to kind of help plug those holes. It's always going to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game, though. As we plug the holes, they find new holes. As anti-cheat detects a cheat, they find a way to get around the cheat. It's like any other game that you've played, but we're trying to be a little bit more proactive right now and make sure that the important things like being able to attack with melee are all gated on the server's version of the world and not the client's version of the world. So this is kind of a long-winded answer, but yeah, hopefully that settles some things.
That was a great answer. All right, the footstep particles and decals are so fun. Will we be able to add new effects to our weapons and armor? If so, a legendary Dragon Ball aura for chess pieces would be so amazing, and elemental visual effects for our weapons would be nice. I would really like a blue flaming sword.
Love it. Yeah, this is actually something that we want to do as well. So I don't know if you noticed, but if you go to the cosmetic inventory in 2.5, there's all these little slots on all the weapon slots there, and the reason that those slots exist is so that you can attach an NFT cosmetic to any one of those things. So you could put a fire NFT on your boots, on your helmet, on your sword, whatever you want to do, and those types of NFTs are forthcoming. We're working on them now, so probably in the next couple of releases you'll see a whole bunch more of those come out. It's really just a matter of building the visual effects that go in there. So yeah, but I love that. That's definitely something we're going to do. We've got a lot of other cool ideas too for different types of cosmetic NFTs. I think the footstep particles were a good first step, but there's a lot of other cool stuff we can do. Trails that you leave behind as you run around, and yeah, all sorts of stuff. So stay tuned.
Oh man, I'm so excited. Okay, regarding spaces, a couple questions. How many players can we have in our spaces currently at one time together? And will that limit, if any, be expanded in the future? There's another part to this. Will there be static portals in the future we can leave open for other players to access our space?
So the limit, there is a limit right now. I believe it's 50 players. It's the limitation really there is just the server that's running the personal metaverse instance. Eventually the CPU gets overloaded and start to get too laggy. So there has to be a limit at some point. But the nice thing about the personal metaverse is that it tends to be a little bit less going on in there than say like Times End, which has lots of creatures and monsters running around that take up server CPU. So I wouldn't be surprised if the limit gets even higher for the personal metaverse, because yeah, we really want those to be gathering places and places you can chat with your friends. And if we do the trading table, it'll be a place for people to go trade. And eventually we want to do like guild-based personal metaverses or a guild metaverse at some point anyway. And that that would need to support a lot of users. So it's definitely something we're looking at raising. And then the second part of that question was static portals into the PPU. I love this idea. This is actually something we've been talking about from very early on. We need to be really careful about how this works because it could be, you can get the world cluttered with all these portals lying around. The idea here is like a personal metaverse portal that you could leave open in Times End for an extended period of time if you want to like invite people to come in, or maybe you want to. One idea that we had is kind of like the trading table. Maybe there's a shop table where you could put a storefront basically in your personal metaverse and allow other players to come in and kind of buy items from you, even if you're not online. That's something that we'd love to do, but we need to make sure that we do that in a way that makes sense, that isn't going to just lead to fields of people's personal metaverse portals that nobody wants to go to. We got to kind of find a good way to limit where people can put them and still make it interesting to do so. So anyway, that's something that's on the horizon that we really want to do though.
Oh man, that's just such a cool concept. Okay, wanted to add, will our NFTs, for Khaled, will our NFTs have the possibility to be traded into other marketplaces such as OpenSea?
Yeah, I mean, in the end of the day, like they are NFTs, that's a possibility, but it will be counterintuitive to what we're doing with OpenWood. We're building it from the ground up to give you the best user experience for our games. So it's not something that we're looking at the current stage, I would say.
Very cool. Thank you. All right, Matt. What do you think of players being able to gather materials and for a gold fee, get generic furniture at a vendor? And can we fill our spaces with generics? And if we like the decoration placement, then can we choose to buy skins for the generic furniture like we do with armor?
It's an interesting idea. It's a little bit tricky because you don't want to, like the decoration NFTs that are dropping in the game right now. If somebody can just go to the vendor and pay gold for those, it kind of erodes how cool the decoration NFTs are. I don't necessarily think that means that we can't do it though. I mean, maybe they're like folding chairs, or something that's a little bit lower rent. I think that's a decent idea to allow people to have some furniture in the game. That's not necessarily an NFT. But another thing that we're talking about doing maybe is having some more NFTs that are built for the personal metaverse that are a little bit more common. So that might kind of fill this hole as well, where it's not as cool as the Arthurian throne is, but it's an item that you can get that's a little bit more prevalent out in the world. So we'll be experimenting with things like that because we want to make sure that people that want to decorate their personal metaverse have the resources to do so, and that's I think it's a cool part of the game is being able to customize your space. So yeah,
very cool. Next up, I didn't know you could add emojis to the questions we're answering, but they did. Okay, fishing, gardening, when?
Yes. So this is definitely something we want to do. In fact, one of our programmers, Martin, really loves fishing in games for some reason. So he's been pushing for this for a long time, and it's definitely something that we would love to add. We have some kind of loose plans to do occupations or occupation skills, and so fishing would be one of those. Maybe gardening is another one of those where you have some task to perform out in the world, like collecting herbs or standing by the water and fishing for fish to get crafting materials or potion reagents or something like that. It's definitely something we want to do. I don't know exactly when we're going to get to that. Hopefully soon. One of the sort of first step that we took into crafting was the weapon gem system. So now there's a lot of crafting materials out in the world, and so now it makes a lot more sense to try and bring stuff like this in. Another sort of talent or profession would be blacksmithing or things along those lines that we definitely want to add to the game because I think it'd be really cool. Give people a reason to go collect those crafting materials and give them something to do with them and stuff like that. So, and first answer is yes, and when I can't say exactly, but hopefully soon. Just stacks up to how we have to get the game economy functional and a bunch of other core systems functional, and those take priority. But we would love to do this, and like I said, Martin is a big fan of this, so maybe he'll sneak it in on a weekend one day. We'll see.
We can only hope. All right, I believe you've kind of answered this to an extent, but maybe we can go into more detail. How many people total are currently in the big time team, and what positions do they have? Devs, mods, artists, etc. Are you adding more, and what is the target?
So at least for the game team, like I said, there's about 32 of us right now. That's spread across programmers, designers, like character artists, environment artists, visual effect artists. We have a 2-person sound team, and that's if anybody that's familiar with kind of more traditional game development, that's very thin. We have kind of one or two of everything pretty much, but as far as where we want to grow, we are definitely going to be hiring some. We don't want to get too big though. We like staying agile, and we like hiring people that are more experienced, kind of veterans of game development that can achieve more by working smarter and not harder. So I don't know exactly where we're going to end up, but I wouldn't expect us to ever become like a hundreds of people style team. We want to stay small and agile for the foreseeable future. As far as on the other side of things, we also have dedicated open loot engineers and a whole host of awesome marketing people that kind of help with that side of things, and a mix of other customer support agents and community people and all kinds of other stuff. But still, the company's quite small. I think we're maybe around 100 people total, something like that. And if I had to guess, this is a wild guess, I'd say we probably won't ever get bigger than say 150. But who knows? The future is vast. I don't know what will happen.
All right. Hey, Big Time, what do you think of the idea of gathering materials in a dungeon to customize the color of our skins? If we could collect different color plants or materials, then combine them with the gold fee at a vendor to change the color of our skins, it would be amazing.
I'm not sure if they're talking about weapon skins or like the actual skin tone of their character. But I suppose if once we have character customization on board. You'll be able to change your skin tone with that. So some sort of dye agent that you could use to change your skin tone isn't out of the question. I think, it's like I said before, we'll probably stay away from any kind of like adjustments or customization for the NFTs themselves, because their visual look is kind of tied into what they are. Mm-hmm. But perhaps we could let people dye their swords or something like that. We'll have to see. I mean, probably more realistic is there might be some other kind of cosmetic NFT that lets you change the color of the blade of the sword or something like that. But in general, I like this idea. I like the idea of collecting materials from the world that gives you some sort of unlock on your character. So maybe we'll take pieces of this, and you'll see pieces of this in future features. We'll have to see.
Awesome. Hey, big time. I think we all still want mounts. The sneak peeks of the shields are dope. Are mount concept leaks coming soon? If so, will we also be able to equip armor skins on our mounts at some point too? Also, what are your thoughts on riding our mounts into a dungeon?
We do want to do mounts. They're probably further off down the line behind a bunch of other stuff, sadly. But I wouldn't be surprised to see mounts in the game before too long. I don't know exactly when that'll be. And there's a lot of good questions about mounts, like for example, can you use a mount in the dungeon? I think it'll probably depend on the mounts. Most likely, you won't be able to use the mount in the dungeon, I'm guessing, but it depends. We could change our minds there. So I don't have a really good answer for that until we get closer to the mounts themselves. Mounts are quite a big undertaking to do right. And again, we don't want to release something that's sort of like janky. We want to make sure that if we do mounts, that it's a really impactful, cool feature to the game. So we're going to make sure that we do it justice and take our time with it.
Awesome. Thank you. It says the new enemy, Punchy McPunch, is a lot of fun to fight. I love seeing new enemies in dungeons, but dungeon bosses would be nice. The climax at the end of a dungeon would be greater if we encountered a single dungeon boss that we had to use teamwork and mechanics to defeat. I believe we already kind of covered or answered that.
Yeah, we talked about boss fights a little bit before. In general, I agree. Everybody loves a good boss. Bosses, unfortunately, are just, I don't know, a couple orders of magnitude more expensive to create than your typical creature in the game is. So that's why you've only seen the elemental boss so far. It's just, again, small team, limited resources. We have to pick our battles, but we are going to be adding more bosses as time goes on. And you're in good company. We all think boss battles are awesome. We'd love to do more of them, and we will be. I just don't know when exactly.
Cool. Khaled, this is for you. It's almost 2 years postcard NFTs have existed, and holders still don't know what will they get. No leaks, no ideas or designs for the reward, and now there's no demand for postcards. So what's Big Time's plan for these postcards?
Yeah, sure. So we're still working on the redemption of the postcards with OpenLoot, and it's on the roadmap. And because we had this airdrop program where we would reward players for holding into their NFTs, that's why we added a special reward that's going to be designed specifically for the postcard owners at the moment of redemption. And I could give you just some ideas of what that extra reward should look like, which should compensate them for the time lost in not participating in the airdrop essentially. So it's probably going to be some type of mystery box that would include utility NFTs, as well as some other things on top of that.
Very cool. There's your answer, everybody. All right, this is another one for you, Khaled. It says, why can't we transfer NFTs to friends / host giveaways, both in and outside of OpenLoot?
Yeah, so outside of OpenLoot, like we maybe this is the third time that we discussed this. I realize now that probably a lot of people are asking about this feature, but this is something that would be in our priority after we have all the core functionality ready for the economy. As in within OpenLoot, that's probably going to be on the roadmap as well. But again, like we have a lot of stuff that we want to do with OpenLoot. The main thing is getting everything ready for the economy, making sure everything is functional. Then we're going to go ahead and implement all of that.
Cool. Matt, this is when can we expect a global launch? An approximate date would be very nice to hear.
Not going to give you one. Sorry. Global. Well, first of all, global launch. I'm not sure what that term really means. The next phase that we have planned is pre-release or pre-season rather, which is the invite-only beta. That's going to be like within the quarter, and then we'll see how that goes after that. The invite-only beta is going to bring a lot of new players into the game. We'll get some better data from that. We'll probably find lots of issues that we want to fix, and so. After the invite-only beta has kind of shown us everything that we need to show, then we will open it up for the general public, which I think is what global launch is talking about, sometime after that. So, not super soon. I'm guessing towards the end of the year, if not later, because again, it's all about making sure that the game is in the state that we need it to be in, and that things are working well. But the invite-only beta will be dramatically increasing the number of people that are able to get in the game. So that's a good one to look forward to in the near future.
Very cool. This is a question I relate to. I really like the music. Will it ever be released on streaming services like YouTube, Spotify, etc.?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Possibly, yeah. I mean, if enough people are interested in it, we could probably make that happen. We have some really cool music tracks in there, and more being added every time we put a patch out. So that is a cool question. We'll have to follow up on that. I'm not sure. I think we have the rights to do something like that, but we'd have to kind of follow through all the business constraints that might be applied to all that stuff. But I love the idea, and I love the fact that you're interested in the music. So that's cool.
Sure. All right. Next one is for Khaled. When can we expect the time token?
Pretty soon, I would say. So obviously, we need time token for the economy. So we're planning to have it once that is out.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably on 0.227.
Cool.
Yeah, when you hear us talking about the game economy release, that's one of the pivotal parts of it. So it'll have to be part and parcel with everything else.
Right. Another one for you, Khaled. Crypto regulation is becoming increasingly likely around the world. Is Big Time in contact with regulators to get the NFTs and tokens approved?
So I'm not sure exactly what you would say with regulators, but we know that we do have internal resources that advise us on every single economy-related system that we do, and we are very cautious in everything that we're implementing. So yeah, we're taking, I think, good measures to make sure that we're okay in that regard.
All right, another one for Khaled. According to the attached roadmap, the next step in development is to release utilities, but it was stated recently that mystery boxes can't be opened until Q3. The question, how can utilities be launched next patch if we are not able to open boxes until September?
Yes, so utility NFTs or mystery boxes should be opened before 0.27, obviously. So the rough date on that is at the later of Q2. Yeah, so before 0.27.
Cool. Got another one for you. Staking is very important for every project to attract users. So does Big Time have a staking program? If yes, how can we stake your token? Is there any requirements for users?
Okay, so the way that we look at it is staking is not really very important in an abstract way. It's very important if you have token unlocks, but you don't have functionality for the token. So that's where staking would come into play, that it would, kind of suppress the supply once you don't have demand for the token. So in our case, what we're planning to do is we're planning to release the token once the economy is out and there is enough sinks to take care of all the supply that is out there. So if we do have a staking program that is in play, it's going to work in an opposite direction to what we want with the economy, where we need a lot of token to be there. That's why we're planning to have the airdrops of time token. It's because we won't have enough time token once the economy is out.
Staking is also one, we were talking about being very careful about not running afoul of regulators, and staking is one of the things that we're probably going to avoid for that very reason. It tends to be sticky if you're allowing staking, especially for a U.S. company. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, Nat, we got two more. Here we go. Security is so important with every project and program. How does Big Time keep users' assets and personal data safe from hackers? And questions off screen, but how do you manage if there is an attack on your platform?
Well, so the first pillar is always just having good principles when we're engineering these systems. We take security very seriously. We make sure that personally identifiable information is always given the right custody and encrypted wherever possible, and we don't ever release keys to anyone to give access to that data unless they absolutely have to have it. And then the other prong to that is we kind of check ourselves regularly. We have penetration testers coming in and trying to infiltrate our systems and reporting any kind of breach that they might be able to find, and we patch those as soon as possible. So it's kind of an ongoing, kind of like any other online company, it's an ongoing and ever-present amount of effort that we have to take, that we definitely are taking, to make sure that we are keeping abreast of any kind of new exploits that arise as we release new features. That's always the danger. You might have a really secure system, and then you release some new feature that changes a bunch of stuff, and you just introduced a new hole into your system somewhere. So every time we do releases, and periodically, even if we don't do major releases, we have people come in, evaluate our systems, and try and poke holes in them. And then beyond that, our engineering team internally is always keeping this top of mind, making sure that we're following good coding practices, and just being really paranoid, I guess, is the short answer.
Best way to do it. All right, this is our last question for today. Currently, most projects and platforms are in English. How will Big Time reach non-English local communities? And do you have any plans for them to better understand your project?
So I'm kind of surprised by this question, actually, because we have the game localized or translated into many languages already. That's something that we put a lot of effort into a lot earlier than you'd see in some other game projects, at least that I've worked on. We have the game translated into, I don't even know what the number is, 10 languages or something like that. So that's the big step right there, is so that when you're in a country and you're not a native English speaker, you can just put the game in your local language, and it'll make a lot more sense, obviously, because you understand the language. Beyond that, we always try to be, we have a wide gamut of interests from all kinds of different countries. So we try to be aware of that and make sure that we have community people in lots of different languages, and Discord channels for lots of different languages, and that we're listening to all those different people. So I'm not sure if that really answers the question, but that is something that we we're aware of all the time, and we're trying to do our best to accommodate lots of different nationalities.
I may be wrong, but wasn't Japanese the most recent language? I believe that we had.
Yeah, in 2.5 we localized the game into Japanese for the first time. So yeah.
Very cool. All right. And on that note, I think that's all the questions that we have time for today. Thank you, Matt and Khaled, for giving us great answers and explanations. And to you guys out there for writing your questions. If you didn't get your question answered today, don't worry. We'll be back next month for another installment. And on that note, have a great rest of your day, everybody. And we'll see you all at Time's End.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah. See ya.